The following is a presentation of William Patterson University Television.
Welcome back to the desk. After a loaded year of big wins and upsets, the college football playoff has finally arrived. It's just around the corner, and the desk is ready to break it down. We got the real committee here today. We got Joe, Phritz, Marc, and Nick. You know, Phritz, Deion Sanders, we're going to start off with him. Coach Prime made a big impact on Jackson State as a whole. He's looking to take a step up with a new program opportunity. Colorado, what is Coach Prime going to bring to Boulder?
Well, he brings that winning attitude. He was great down at Jackson State. Back-to-back championships in the SWAC division. Coming with him is going to be a lot of recruits. His son as well, Shador. 3K yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 picks last year. A lot of talent is going to be coming to Colorado, and it's all because of him and his culture. Going to be great.
You know, it's going to be exciting for sure. Joe, what do you think Deion is going to bring?
Well, listen, his name himself brings recruits, right? That attracts people, and he's bringing his son over, like Shador Sanders. Also, who knows? He might bring other top recruits as well to Colorado. This is a program that hasn't been relevant in the past decade, and he's trying to bring back this Colorado team and make it prestigious again in the Pac-12.
And only one win this past season. Not too good. Nick, you like Deion Sanders' chances? What does he bring to the table?
Hey, look, at the end of the day, show me the money. Deion Sanders is bringing NIL deals to Colorado. Who's going to do anything with Colorado? Even you hear the former quarterback for Colorado, well, not former yet, but we'll see, talking about how, you know, he couldn't get NIL deals and that wasn't really an option for this Colorado program. But right now with Deion coming in, a bunch of people are obviously hitting them up, reaching out, trying to give these kids contracts and get these guys paid.
Marc, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, after going 1-11 this season, Colorado's, feeling a little down. But Deion Sanders, he brings energy, coming out with his players in the locker room. He's a real players coach, and he really brings just that positive, like Phritz said, winning attitude, but it's also that energy. Even if they're losing games, he's still going to bring that energy every single game.
Flipped the #1 recruit, by the way,
He
from
did.
Florida State to an HBCU school. That's not common.
That's monumental.
Yeah. Travis Hunter was #1 receiver in his class. Huge monumental case right there.
Florida State, as we all know, is where Deion Sanders went to school, so that definitely was a statement that he made. You know, Joe, the end of the season coming for college football, the playoffs around the corner, that means a big-time award is going to give it out. We saw you kind of strike a Heisman pose a little bit earlier today. Who do you think is deserving to be striking the Heisman pose this year?
Yeah, let's take a trip to UNC. I'm going with Drake Maye, the freshman quarterback for the Tar Heels. He played 13 games, total yards of 4,100, 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a QBR of 82.7. Guys, he's a freshman, all right? But he has a calm presence in the pocket. And, yes, there was other top quarterbacks in this year, but he could have made a case this year, especially, I know they lost to Clemson in the ACC title game. He had a little bit of underperformance, but he still had a case to make with the numbers against the other quarterbacks in our Heisman finalists this year.
Definitely a bunch of snubs that were that were not included in the final ceremony. Drake Maye is a good snub. Marc, I'll throw it to you. Which quarterback do you feel like should be in the ceremony?
Well, for me, it's Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. I know he tore his ACL in his left knee during that game against South Carolina. Very unfortunate. 35 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 89.4 QBR, which is second in all of college football. Super impressive year, and he's definitely more deserving than Stetson Bennett. Let's be real.
Well, both of them made an impact in the SEC East. Hendon Hooker definitely had a very tough way to see him end his season after all that he did with Tennessee this year. Phritz, who do you think got snubbed out of the Heisman potentially?
Enough of all the quarterbacks. We're going to give some love to the running backs. Blake Corum from Michigan leading the charge for the #2 team in the nation. Over 14,000 yards, 18 touchdowns on the year. Look, his 2022 season ranks 3rd in school history overall. With that running behind that great offensive line, it's really great. Sad to see him go down with the injury, but his impact on the team can't be, taken away this year.
Definitely cannot. Michigan's going to have a chance. We're going to talk about their chances in a little bit. Definitely has a chance to win the national title this year. Nick, who's your candidate that you feel like should have gotten a better opportunity at the Heisman?
Well, look, let's talk about somebody that plays more than one tough game a season. Let's talk about Bryce Young for Alabama. He threw for, over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. This season right now is a down year from last year with 47 and 7 that he had. But even in a down year, his numbers are equivalent to a guy like Max Duggan, who is a Heisman finalist. So let's be real, I get voter fatigue and stuff like that, but Bryce Young is a better quarterback than everybody out there. Stetson Bennett, he's probably got kids to babysit and stuff like that. He shouldn't even be on this list. It's really embarrassing. The guy's Bryce Young.
He is an old guy, by the way.
He's an old guy.
Same age as Lamar Jackson, and he's a Heisman finalist.
He's got a pension. What's going on? What's going on?
You guys need to relax a little. That's kind of crazy. Give Stetson Bennett his flowers. He's a national champion, potentially a two-time one. But you did mention Bryce Young, Nick. Bryce Young and Alabama as a whole is wishing that they got into the playoff this year. But as we know, the committee has agreed to expand the college football playoff to 12 teams just in the near future. What do we think about this deal as a whole, and what do you think about this going forward for the NCAA? Marc, what are your thoughts?
Look, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of the expansion. Maybe if it was dialed down from 12 teams to maybe 8, I'd be a little more of a fan. But 12 teams, I just feel like there's too many undeserving teams in that bubble that really could make the playoffs there. Like, I mean, it's just tough to see a team like, let's say, Utah, who might go 10-2 on the year to make the playoffs when they might not be so deserving over a team like Alabama.
Joe?
I mean, listen, do I like the expansion? Yes, I like the expansion overall. However, can 12 teams be too much? Yes, you can make the argument as well. We could drop it down to 8 teams maybe, even 6, whatever the case is. But I like it because it brings in more NIL deals. It brings up the competition more, and we can see upsets. You know, you love to see the upsets in college football. You know, who wouldn't want to see a number 12 Tulane team upset Georgia? Like, who wouldn't want to see it on national television?
Well,
I still want to see pigs fly, Joe, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen. You know.
Well, first of all, the possibility of it happening, listen, is Georgia the favorite to win the game? Yeah, of course Georgia will be the favorite to win the game, but upsets do happen. What happened to LSU? LSU was ranked number 4 in the country. They lost to unranked Texas A&M Aggies. And Jimbo Fisher, that Aggies team was an absolute, you know, non-relevant team in the SEC, and look what happened.
Well, they were supposed to be better.
Number 1 recruiting class.
To A&M's credit, but Nick, I know you're very passionate in disagreement with Joe. This is kind of the anti-expansion side. So what are your thoughts on this?
Look, at the end of the day, I know we all love a good underdog story, a good fight story, but let's be real. There are not 12 competitive teams in college football that can really get a shot at the national championship. Really, to fix this issue, what you need to do is make these teams play more competition. There's no reason why TCU should be able to duck, you know, these SEC schools throughout the 12 games. There's 12 games in a season. Why don't we get a TCU Georgia regular season matchup? Why don't we get a TCU Bama regular season matchup? It's because they know they can compete, and they do this thing where they play these teams in their you know, respective conferences, and they weasel their way into these amazing records, and then they're going to go in there and they're going to get whipped in the college football playoff. We saw it with Cincinnati last year. We had 4 teams last year, and only 2 of them, maybe you could argue 3, were actually really competitive. It doesn't make sense. We don't need that many teams.
Well, to TCU's defense, I'll play a little devil's advocate for both sides. TCU's defense, they were unexpected to be this good this year, so they kind of emerged late in the year. A lot of people thought they'd finally lose, and it just never happened. But Phritz, we got kind of the anti-side. Joe's very much a pro. Where do you stand on this?
I'm with my turtleneck brother over here, man. I love the expansion.
Well, Nick's got a turtleneck.
He's not one of us. But look, man, you can have a debate about if 12 teams is too much. You know, that's neither here or there, but you can't deny the fact that this is going to bring more competition to the college football playoffs. One of my main problems was that I always thought 4 teams was too little. The best thing about college football, in my opinion, like Joe stated earlier, is upsets. Having that opportunity just to have a game that is unexpected, you know, will bring in more viewers, will bring in a lot of more money for those players. I think that it is a positive, so.
I think recruit changes too as well.
Of course.
You know, recruits now start to bounce. And teams, you know, you see more teams are able to join the playoffs, right? Now, you know, you see the teams like Alabama and the SEC who are usually stacked with, you know, the top recruiting classes in the nation. You might see a little bit more of a balance now between the top Power 5 conferences.
Okay, but do you think that TCU is going to get a boost in recruiting because of them making the playoffs?
Maybe or maybe not. However, though, listen, the Big 12 is still a competitive. Listen, the SEC, in my opinion, is number 1 conference.
Of course,
in football.
yeah.
There is no doubt about that. Is competition different? Yes, I will agree to that. But in the power, you're still, you know, it's still a Power 5 conference.
Of course.
You know, the fact that TCU went undefeated, and again, they lost in the Big 12 championship against the Kansas State team, which they beat earlier in the regular season. But the fact that they still went 12-1 is still impressive. You know, recruiting changes over the years.
Well,
you know what I mean? And our deals now are a factor now too in the recruiting process. I mean, look at the Aggies. They had the number 1 recruiting class in the whole nation in their SEC team.
They all jumped ship.
And they were below 500.
Yeah.
And now everyone's transferring out of there.
Yeah,
The transfer
they're all
portal,
jumping
the
ship.
transfer portal is now going to be a huge problem now. Well, I would say a problem, but now the transfer portal is changing. The world of college football now, recruiting and transfer portal, is changing now.
Yeah.
You put the Aggies in the Big 12, they go undefeated. First of all,
No, they don't.
The issue
don't
with
go
the issue with the
undefeated.
Aggies,
They're
it's
below
the-
500
what
this
I'm-
year.
What I'm saying
They had
is,
number
you put
recruiting
them-
class
you
this
put them in
year,
the Big
Nick.
12. You
They
put
had
them in the
number
Big 12, they
recruiting
go
class.
undefeated.
Everybody's
There's not a
leaving.
single defensive player in the Big 12 that actually does anything. All these guys, you're talking about getting recruits. The Big 12 has always been offense. The problem with these teams is, again, they don't face competition. As soon as they face a competent defense, they get smoked. We see it year after year. We saw it a couple years back when Oklahoma with Jalen Hurts got put into the playoff. And what happened when they faced a competent defense in LSU? They got smoked. All these Big 12 teams,
LSU was
they
a
do all
different.
this.
LSU
All these teams they do
was a different team in 2019.
I'm saying we're going to see it this year again. We're going to see TCU go up against an actual competent defense, and we're going to see them get smoked. That's just what's going to happen. It
I
happens
think
all the time
personally,
with
I
these
think
Big 12
Michigan
teams.
TCU
They're
is not
fraudulent.
Michigan TCU is not that far apart. I don't think they're
No.
they're
Fraudulent.
both they're both second half teams.
They couldn't beat Kansas State.
All right, turtlenecks, settle down. The ties are the more relaxed one here today, I have to say. But that was very exciting, I have to say. But something that will also be very exciting is the national championship game. We're going to go through this one quickly. We talked about Georgia. We talked about Michigan. Nick, who you got to win the Natty this year?
Look, it's clear. They're the number one team in the country for a reason. They're the defending champs for a reason. Georgia's the answer. They got, Stetson Bennett, who's, pushing 50 at quarterback. And, he's real gritty. He's a veteran. He's been around here for a long time. Plays the game the right way, kind of first guy and last guy type of guy. So, got to go Stetson.
Fritz.
I'm gonna go with the Michigan with this one. I like how they looked with their win against Ohio, bitter rival, and they dominated them. Purdue wasn't that big of a test, but they took care of their business. I think that they can ride that momentum and probably can shock the world.
Joe, do you agree with Georgia? Do you agree with Michigan? Are we going to argue with Nick again?
Listen, I made a joke that I chose TCU, but obviously not. I chose Georgia. I mean, listen, Georgia's number one team for a reason, right? And yes, I gave my roses to Stetson Bennett, but how about this defense? Number one defense in the nation underneath Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp. But this defense also has flaws, and they showed against the LSU game. Yeah, they won the game, but LSU put up 30 points and put up over 500 yards. Listen, Jalen Carr and his defense needs really to improve if they really want to win it all.
Mark, where are we going?
I'm going Michigan. Let's have a little fun. I do think that, Georgia's obviously a very talented team, but they lost a lot of guys. They lost guys like Trayvon Walker. They lost guys like, all that, pretty much a lot of that defense went in that draft. And ultimately, I think that's going to affect them. I think, Michigan's running back, who obviously Blake Corum is not going to be playing, but I do think that their backup is pretty talented in his own right. He is very good.
Great O-line, too.
Well, I think the playoff this year will show if guys like TCU, teams like TCU can match up. That will kind of give a little glimpse into the 12-team playoff. But I get to break a tie in our last episode of the semester. I got to go with Georgia. I think the traditional bloods will reign supreme. But I also will kind of say, while more teams are exciting in the playoff, it doesn't change the teams that are going to normally win in the playoff. But that is all we would like to say. Thank you to Yakira Rosa especially and everyone for being here with us today, for making this episode of Sports as possible and for this semester. We will see you back next semester towards the end of January. From all of their cast and crew, and a special thanks to the tallest man in the room, Al Clark. From everyone here on the desk, I'm Jimmy Patton from Hamilton Hall, and we'll see you next time.